I hope everybody had a good new year because new year means same old stick and same old office. You expected something different? Guess again.
After high demand,
Listening to you and Justin, that's a professional podcast right there.
the man with a voice.
He's got a wicked voice on it too. He does. He's got like, oh my goodness. I listen to his voice. I'm like, dude, you can go places with that voice. You are freaking phenomenal.
Has his own podcast. And what does he think?
Oh,
BoyStick presents the Honestly Lazy Podcast.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode of the Honestly Lazy Podcast of 2020. Yeah, I hope everyone had a good new year. I haven't had mine yet because this is pre-recorded, but hopefully I did have a good new year, New Year's Eve, and I had a lot of fun, even if I didn't. New Year's Eve is kind of overrated for me nowadays. Usually because I just kind of go overboard, but well, I don't know. I haven't celebrated yet, but by the time this comes out, I've had celebrated it, and I'm probably hungover as shit. So you're an idiot, future BoyStick, for getting too drunk, but I hope you had fun. But today on the Honestly Lazy Podcast, it's a bit different. It's a top 5. I actually have done a few top 5s, but this is one that I kind of wanted to do for a really long time. It was more of it was just more of, I was always fascinated in what people thought were the top 5 greatest bands of Canada. So that's it, the top 5 greatest Canadian rock bands. And I didn't really know how I was going to do this video. I kind of want to do it with my own personal opinion, but I thought, that requires a lot more research and shit. That I was kind of busy and wasn't. I was kind of nervous about doing the research and people still being mad at me, so I kind of posted to my personal Instagram on my story, people to rate their top 5s. In the future, I'll do it all on BoyStick, but for this one, I decided to just do it on my personal one because I have like more followers on that one. So I'd like to give a couple shout outs to the people who actually participated. Obviously, my boy Quinn Marr, he participated in it, and I think each time I do something with the podcast, he'll put his opinions in. So Quinn Marr, thank you very much. My brother Brandon, he participated and gave his top 5. I didn't know how to say his name on Instagram, but it's my buddy East Coast Eric. Shout out to you for participating in it. B. Kernsey, an old college friend of mine, actually participated. I haven't heard from you in a long time, buddy, but thank you for participating. Give me your top 5. Jenna Dalton, aka my cousin, who I didn't expect her to give her top 5, but she did. So thank you, Jenna, for giving your top 5. B. Warrens, who is an old friend of mine, who is still a good friend of mine. He gave his top 5. My old buddy Joey Sanford, Jess from Barrie, Ontario, because I don't know how to say your Instagram name, and of course Paul Williams from the Warm Beer Podcast. So thank you all for doing your top 5s on my personal Instagram, and look, you even got a free shout out for it. So thank you all very much for participating. Give me your top 5s, and I'll kind of explain what I did with that. Oh, there was also 2 other people. My good buddy Nathan Breeze, who's an actual musician, I asked him for his 2 cents, and he gave me like 5 different lists for different types of way that they were doing greatest rock bands. He gave his top 5s for a bunch of different ways, and that was pretty cool. So thank you very much, Nathan. And my buddy Grundy, who actually used to be a radio DJ, gave me his top 5s, and they were all put into this list. And from there, I pretty much did it in this kind of way of, I tallied them all up. Whoever had the most votes was number 1. Whoever had the least votes was number 5. Now, number 5 was actually a big issue. Everyone else was pretty easy to pick through the voting, but if you can see my cue card, if you're watching on YouTube, by the way, this is on YouTube at Honestly Lazy Podcast, and this is also on Honestly Lazy Podcast on Spotify. If you type that in, this will pop up, and it's magnificent. I always forget to plug that, but there's your plug. But for number 5, there was a lot of people that through everything, there was a lot of 2s. as I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 musicians that were only had 2 votes. So from there, I was going to just be like, oh, I'll put them all on Instagram and let them pick. Yeah, didn't care. I just picked my personal opinion for number 5, but I will go through everyone else that they picked, and I'm pretty sure I just showed you the whole list, but I don't know. Who cares? But from number 5 down, it was pretty easy. It was just number 5 was a bitch, but I'll go through all the number 5s and then tell you my personal opinion. So for number 5, here's what I had to pick from. Nickelback, Sum 41, The Band, Our Lady Peace, The Guess Who, JB, and Seeing Color. Nickelback, I was not going to put in. Not like I will say, for a famous point of view, yes, they were actually fucking huge. And like everyone has their guilty conscience or guilty song that they love by Nickelback, even me. And I'm not revealing it. Maybe you'll hear me sing it in a podcast one day or on a live stream, but I'm not revealing it. You'll just have to figure it out for yourself. Leave a comment down below what you think. If you're on my YouTube, leave a comment down below. What do you think is my secret Nickelback song? Because I only know like 4. And I wasn't going to put them on the list. I've never been a fan of them, and if it was my personal choice, I wasn't going to pick them. They have done a lot, but I mean, there's that video of the lead singer getting like a rock or something, or a piece of something hitting him in the head. So obviously they were not beloved everywhere. Sum 41, on the other hand, I do have respect for, especially because they're from Ajax, which is pretty close to me, and they've always had my respect, kind of, but not really. Like, I don't know, I know a few of their songs, and in the 2000s, I'd say they were one of the biggest bands. I mean, you've seen them go on TV and they perform with the lead singer Judas Priest at music awards, and I'm not gonna lie, I have a few of their songs on my iPod, and they do kill it. I'm sorry, I keep putting the list in front of here. I don't want you guys to see it. I'll put my hand over top of it. But I didn't think they were worthy enough. I know people are going to be like probably losing their mind. Sum 41. The people who pick Sum 41 might be mad at me, but I just, in my personal opinion, didn't think that they deserved or they were worthy enough. The next is The Band. I was going to put them on the list, but I wasn't 100% sure about them, the band. I mean, everybody knows a band song. Like, The Weight is a song that everybody knows. It plays at campfires, and if it comes on at a bar or, like, you know, at work, everybody's singing it. Everybody knows that song. They know Up on Cripple Creek. But if I say a song like Acadian Driftwood, yeah, they don't know that song. So I wasn't too sure about that, but they were kind of my next one. Our Lady Peace. Again, I know of Our Lady Peace, but I don't know of Our Lady Peace, if that makes sense. Just checking out my earphones. I know, like, a few of their songs. I didn't, like, if I knew a bit more about them, I should have done research, but I'm lazy. It's the Honestly Lazy podcast. Screw off. But I didn't really think that they were that big, or, like, they're a good band, but, like, I was looking of all time, and the list is actually pretty good for all time. It's just the one I was pretty surprised about, but it got the most votes, so follower's choice, that's what you get. But Our Lady Peace, I couldn't really pick them. They're a good band, but I would never pick them to be the top one in any way, as shitty as that sounds, but I'm a pretty shitty guy. So Our Lady Peace I wasn't picking. JB, fuck no. Fuck it. Fuck JB, no. Just the fact that he got 2 votes, I think it was a joke, but the fact that he got 2 votes and I almost had to pick him, fuck no. I wouldn't have put him on my list. I would pick someone else. Justin Bieber is cancer. I hate Justin Bieber. I hate his personality. I hate his music. He's garbage. And City and Color. Actually, I almost did pick City and Color. I was actually pretty surprised that that didn't get more votes, but only 2 people picked City and Color, so The band I did end up picking was the Guess Who. No reason is because the Guess Who has... Well, first of all, I had more respect for the Guess Who. I've always loved the Guess Who. And, I mean, everybody knows American Woman. Everyone knows No Sugar Tonight. Everyone knows No Time. They just had, to me, of all those bands, they had the most known songs out of any of the other bands. But I could be wrong, but that was just my personal choice. And I just like the story. Like, they have cool stories, too, about, like, how the riff to American Woman came together. How the song came together. I found this video of... They bring the musicians in and they put on a vinyl and they explain the song. And how American Woman came together was Randy Bachman's guitar string broke. And while he's trying to tune it, he created that ba-na-na-na-na-na to make sure it sounded good. And the crowd went insane. So he kept playing it and looked at Burton Cummings and was like, sing something to this, and he just started singing American Woman, like just that, American Woman, American Woman. So after the show, they wrote the song, and I think that was in Kitchener, where they played it is now a grocery store, and apparently in the back of the grocery store, there's a little plaque saying that this is where American Woman was written, which to me is a hands down a really cool story, obviously, and they were also just a very well-known band. And to me, especially, it's always for me the battle between BTO and the Guess Who. Even though they sound the same or sound completely different and their styles were completely different, I always struggled on who was actually the better band, because Burton Cummings and Randy Bachman are two hands down amazing musicians. It was just like, to me, it depends on the mood you're in. I like BTO when I really want to rock, pretty much, as lame as that sounds. If I really want to just, like, get more into rock and roll. If I just want to chill out, Guess Who to me is like you smoke a bit of hash or weed and you just sit back and listen to Guess Who, where, like, BTO, especially with that song Down the Highway, or Let It Roll Down the Highway, that song is like a road trip song, get you pumped up for wherever the hell you're going. So it was always in between them, but for this list, no one picked BTO. Kind of upset me. If it came down to BTO versus Guess Who for real hard rock music, which I'm not putting this list towards that more than anything, I probably would have picked BTO. But I'm not saying Guess Who isn't bad. Guess Who is, to me, one of Canada's historical bands. Everybody knows a Guess Who song. But here's the surprising one, is that this band beat them, and that is Billy Talent at number 4. Personally, I was never the biggest fan of Billy Talent. Back when I was a very young kid, I actually did listen to a lot of Billy Talent. A lot of, I loved the drummer and the guitarist. I can see why people actually think Billy Talent could be one of Canada's greatest rock bands, because if you actually listen, like, I'm not a fan of the vocalists' lyrics or anything, just because to me a lot of it sounds too depressing. But if you listen to how the drums and the guitar and all of them play together, it's amazing. And I didn't know that Alexis on Fire's drummer took over for the original one, because I think the original drummer for Billy Talent got MS. So Alexis on Fire, which is hands down, even though I'm not into that music, I will always listen to Alexis on Fire. That makes the band even cooler to me. Like, that's when Alexis on Fire broke up, he joined them. And when I think of Billy Talent, I think of the intro to Red Flag. And Red Flag was one of the drum beat is like, it's a simple drum beat, but I don't know how they did it, but it just pumps me up every time I listen to it. And when it comes to the guitarist, I'm trying to think what song I'd really say, like, this one I realized the guitarist was really good. I always liked the guitar riff to Falling Leaves, even though it wasn't the most challenging riff. I liked Try Honesty. I always liked the picking to that. Like I said, I don't know too much about Billy Talent, but the followers picked him, and with that, I can agree and I can disagree of why they shouldn't be on this list, but at the end of the day, you guys picked him, and I won't chirp it because, like I said, even though I didn't like the band that much, I will never deny that the musicians that were in that band are all extremely talented. It's just the type of music that they make I'm not a fan of. And I've had this conversation with people before about how, and I've always said that about Billy Talent, is like they could actually make some good music, like music that I could listen to. I'm not saying they make bad music, but it's just music I don't really mess with. But they could make really like rock music with how talented they are, and they could make a really good song. It's like that song Blow, where it's Chris Stapleton, Ed Sheeran, and Bruno Mars. I love that song. And me and Nathan, the musician, Nathan Breeze, and I have had conversations about that song, and we look at in two totally different spectrums, but at the end of the day, we both are actually like, you know what, for pop guys to do that and sound that good of a rock song, it's like if Billy Talent really, I would like to see Billy Talent try to do an older sounding type rock song, like what the Sheepdogs kind of do, because Sheepdogs, when I first heard the Sheepdogs, I thought they were an old 70s band, and they just came out. And they end up being the first band to ever get on the cover of the Rolling Stones without having a label. Like, they did it themselves. I thought that was cool. But I'm getting off topic. But yeah, I'd like to see Billy Talent try to do an older rock song, like the sound. Because I think they could actually do it. Like, that's just my personal opinion. But, yeah. So, yeah, Billy Talent was picked on this list. And, you know, if that's what you guys want, that's your opinions, and it's on the list. But like I said, I wish I could have done a bit more research. I feel like people are going to comment on this and say, "You suck. You suck at doing top fives. Don't ever do this again." Which I will anyways, asshole. But yeah, so that's number 4. And number 3, which I agree should be in the top 3. Even though he is kind of more folk, but, you know, he did have some good rock songs, and that's Neil Young. I mean, Neil Young, the last top 3 is like, if you're Canadian, you know these bands. It's funny because number 2 and number 3, Neil Young and the next band, is the one, it's either you listen to Neil Young or you listen to the other band that's coming up. But I prefer to listen to Neil Young more than the number 2 band, but I'm pretty sure everyone's going to figure out what number 2 is and what number 1 is at this point. But number 3 being Neil Young, I was happy with that. Just because Neil Young is hands down not the most he's good at guitar, and he created his own sound. Neil Young came from them telling him that he'll never make it as a singer and he's a terrible singer, to being one of the most well-known singers ever. Like, I've seen tons of people try to sound like him. I've seen, like, go watch him live. He's a one-man show. He plays harmonica. If he doesn't have a band with him, he does harmonica to whatever you need it to be like. Like, I've seen him play Roll Another Number, where there's a piano little solo thing, or a slide guitar, I think. And it's just him, so he does a harmonica to it and makes it sound like what the piano or whatever did. On top of the fact that everybody knows a lot of Neil Young songs. If you don't know Heart of Gold or Old Man or Harvest or anything like that, like, you've been living underneath a rock. On top of the fact that he just did so much, and I think he was one of the most creative Canadian guys I've ever seen, with his lyrics and being just himself, even though he did piss Leonard Skinner off. But because he pissed Leonard Skinner off, we have Sweet Home Alabama, which is pretty cool because he wrote a song called Southern Man, hence why in Leonard Skinner's song, I heard Mr. Young sing about him, Harold Neil put him down, well, I hope Neil Young will remember, Southern Man don't need him around anyhow. That was like, and Neil Young has done a lot, and he sells out everywhere. And he the thing about Neil Young is, I think, because I play guitar, and I think I know more Neil Young songs than anything else, because they're actually really fun to play. Like, Old Man is a really fun song to play. But there's just so much to Neil Young that I just love, and I wish I could explain it better. First of all, like lyrics, I love his lyrics. I love the stories. I love, like, when I want to write a song, I listen to Neil Young. Hands down, Neil Young or bluegrass music, but it's usually Neil Young. And the fact that he still writes, the fact that he still makes his own music to this day is astonishing. And of course, I got his vinyl of him live at Massey Hall in like 72 or 74, something like that. Did like big two-piece heavy ass vinyls, and I love that. And it's weird. That was like when I really, because I was like, Neil Young's alright, but after listening to that vinyl, I was like, damn, I gotta get more into Neil Young. And then I went out and bought Harvest on vinyl. And yeah, if you guys want to see my vinyl collection, leave a comment down below and I'll do a video of me going through all my vinyls, because I've got a fuck ton. But yeah, Neil Young deserves to be on at least the top 3 for Canadian, I guess, greatest rock bands, just because he's such an icon and like everybody knows him. He's played with the biggest bands. He went on to the band, the band called The Band. He went and played at their last show where Martin Scorsese directed it. He's played with Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings. He's played with Bob Dylan. He was part of Cosby, Still, Youngs, and Nash. He played at Woodstock. Like, that's a lot for one Canadian guy to do. Even though I'll get into it later, but for a guy from, I think he's from Omimi, Tweed or Omimi or something like that. I forget where he's from, but he's from a small town, and to make it that far in music blew me away. On top of the fact that, I forget, it was like a few years ago now, he did a live show, live to TV, somewhere in Canada, and he did it in his hometown, like a hometown like mine, like a small ass town, and people were showing up on their tractors to get a glimpse of him and stuff, and he's just an icon. And you know, he does Farm Aid, he helped out with Live Aid, they finished off Live 8 with his own song, with all the musicians coming out at the Toronto show playing Keep On Rockin' the Free World. Like, he's just done so much for us, and I feel like I've been going on a lot about Neil Young. So let's get on to number 2. Number 2, and this is what I mean, because I've had this debate with other people. Number 2, it's either you listen to Neil Young, or number 2, which is Rush, because they're two different sides of the spectrum. What can I say about Rush? I used to really like them, kind of grew out of them, but I will never say Rush was a bad band. Geddy Lee playing keyboard and bass, the amazing guitar solos from Alex Lifeson, and the fact that Neil Peart had that, like, God knows how much money into that drum set and played every little bit of that drum set at every show, did a drum solo. Like, they, hands down, they're probably, out of this whole list, the most talented out of all the bands that are on this list with their instruments. Just for the fact that, like, listen to, what's the song? Free Will with the bass, little bass lick. Like, YYZ is hands down the song that makes you like, wow, they can all play their instruments. On top of the fact that they were going for how many years before they retired. And usually musicians or bands will bring in another guitarist or a little background guitarist. Green Day's done it. Nirvana did it. Trying to think who else did it. Well, those are the only two I can think of. But they bring in guitarists, and it's always been a 3-piece band with these guys. On top of the fact of how creative they are. My buddy Nathan Breeze told me, because he's seen them like 5 times, he told me that you can see these old videos at a dishwasher. They have washing machines back washing clothes. And apparently Nathan told me that they did that to help counterweight the stage. And then at the end of the show, they'd open up every machine, or dryers, sorry, they were dryers, not washers. And they take all the t-shirts and huck them into the crowd for the crowd to have. That is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And it's weird because each time I see an interview with these guys, they seem like the most humble guys you could ever talk to. And it just seems like they really love making music. I mean, when you listen to a Rush song, you can tell there's a lot of effort put into the production, into the sound, into a lot. And let's face it. Rush is the only band that everyone goes to see the drummer. That drum solo, which is very like amazing to me. But Neil Peart is hands down one of the best drummers in the world. Of course, I'd pick John Bonham, I think John Bonham's the only one I'd pick over him. Although Iron Maiden's drummer's really good. Glorious Sons, like their drummer is. I wouldn't put him in the same rank as Neil Peart or any of them, but he's more creative in how he uses his drum set. It's not just every song is a hi-hat, snare, and bass drum with a little drum roll in between. He uses every drum for every song, which is cool. But Rush, I will always respect, and Rush is just as iconic. Everybody knows Rush, and everybody knows that Neil Peart is one of the best drummers ever known to man. Alex Lifeson is one of the best Canadian guitarists ever known to man, in my opinion. Because, oh my god! And the thing I really liked is each time I see one of their shit, like their live stuff on YouTube, it's like they're just having so much fun. Like for an intro, they have South Park playing Tom Sawyer, and then it comes into them actually playing. There's like pictures of all of them, and it says like Geddy Lee, and it's like an old picture of him. Alex Lifeson, when it says Neil Peart, it says like Tom Cruise or something like that. They just have a lot of fun and just a lot of creativity into their own show, which to me makes makes me feel like they're more humbling than anything else in the world. And yeah, that's what I'd like to say about them. And and I guarantee you everybody already knows what number one is, but we'll do the old, like, what is number one? Let's do a couple shout-outs. Yeah, I'll do a couple shout-outs first. Before we get into the number one, I'll give a couple shout-outs, just like Watch Mojo, how they piss you off with the shout-outs. But I'll give a shout-out to bands like Glorious Sons, which is hands down my favorite Canadian band right now, and they are well-deserved to be on the best new list. Maybe I'll do that. Newer bands, not of all time, but newer bands. Bands like Glorious Sons, Monster Truck, I can't think, Chilliwack, Triumph. Like, there was a lot on here that I was like, I'd put that on my list, but it needs more votes. Jess from Barrie put Downwood Webster and Headley. Not a fan of that. Like, Stephen Wolf, I said Monster Truck. There's her hand. Chilliwack, The Rankings, Blue Rodeo. Blue Rodeo is actually a really good one. I wasn't a big fan of Blue Rodeo until I started playing with my buddy Nathan, because we do like a campfire tour when we're up at Mossport, and he plays this one song, Hasn't Hit Me Yet, by Blue Rodeo, and when I heard that song, that's when I was like, maybe I can get into these guys, and I think they're pretty good. But those are the shout outs. And number one, what do you think number one is? I'll give you like a wild guess. Okay, you're not even getting a guess because this isn't live. It's Tragically Hip. No shit, Tragically Hip is going to be number one. And some people get mad at me when I say they were the greatest Canadian rock and roll band, but they're not great in the way of talent. They're great in the way of they didn't give a fuck, and they represented Canada. Like, they're the band that represented Canada the most, with songs like Bob Cajun, 100 Million, 50th Mission Capped, Fireworks, like a bunch of songs that were just about Canada. On top of the fact that if they tried to leave Canada and go on tour, like outside, go to the States or something, Canadians would just show up to the shows. It'd be more Canadians than Americans. So they literally were just Canada's band. And there's just so much. Gord Downie alone, the lead singer who passed away from brain cancer, did so much for, like, before he died, he went up and talked about the schools that were up in I gotta get more educated. Everyone's gonna be mad. He opened the minds to telling stories about what happened up there at those schools with the Native children. He did everything great. All he wanted to do was help people, it felt like, and he loved pursuing music. And I think they deserve to be number one just because of the fact that I've heard so many stories about them, people meeting them in bars and stuff, and they are like the biggest, they know how big they are in Canada, and they sit there and talk to people like, yeah, they're just a regular guy. Like, I've heard stories of a buddy, while I was getting this tattoo, the tattoo artist was telling me that, sorry, if you guys are watching on YouTube, the video cut out for a sec there. But the guy who gave me this tattoo was telling me the fact of how his buddy was up in Kingston at a bar, and Tragically Hip came in after recording all day. So he went up and said, guys, thank you for your music. I'm a big fan. They said, oh, thank you for listening. And when he went back to his table, a pitcher of beer came. And the bartender said, it's from those guys over there, and it was from Tragically Hip. And then the owner of the bar came out and said, if you guys play like 2 songs, I think it was 2, everyone gets the next drink for free. And then what I hear is that they went up and played 5 instead. Same with the day that Gord Downey passed away, Corner Gas posted a post on Instagram where they had one scene with Tragically Hip in it. And after they got the scene, Tragically Hip played 3 songs for him, for everyone who was there shooting all day. Just the little things like that they just want to perform. Before they even went on tour, they had this downtown thing in Kingston where they had the street blocked off, and Tragically Hip just came walking out. They announced that Gord Downey had brain cancer. No one had seen Gord Downey. He was out. There was no picture of him after they announced it. And then next thing you know, he's on the news playing for Kingston, just this little area. On top of the fact that he went across Canada for one last tour just to say goodbye to his fans. And then when he did his last show, which was obviously back in Kingston, I forget, I'm going to look that up right now while doing the podcast, because I forgot to look it up. But it's astonishing how many people, hang on. How many people tuned in to Tragically Hip's last show?
According to CBC.ca, broadcast featured last stop on band's Man Machine Poem Tour, potentially its last. The CBC's broadcast
Okay, screw that. So pretty much it says that the Tragically Hip, okay.
Concert reached 11.7 million people on Saturday.
There you go. If you didn't hear that, 11.7 million people just in Canada watched that last show. To watch 5 guys play their last show ever together. That's how big Tragically Hip was in Canada. That's like, and the funny thing is, I said earlier that Neil Young played at Woodstock. At least I think he did. I know they were supposed to be there. I don't know if that was the one they bailed on. No, they bailed on the Rolling Stones free one. Anyways, the Tragically Hip played at, I think, the 99 Woodstock. And they played the whole set. And then when they tried to sing "O Canada" at the end of their set, the whole crowd fucking booed him. And he finished singing "O Canada." He said thank you and he left with the crowd booing him. Hands down, like, Tragically Hip is the Canadian band, and I will always argue that they are the greatest Canadian band. Skill-wise, no, but for how they represent Canada, hell yes. They stayed in Canada, they loved Kingston, they loved Canada, and that's what I think the next band, I've been saying this, is that Glorious Sons is going to be the next Tragically Hip, and the way that they're blowing up, it might actually happen. Which would be awesome. But, yeah. Like, I could just ramble on about music. I should have made this a music podcast. Maybe in the future. Yum, cold coffee. All right. So that will have to do it for this episode of the Honestly Lazy podcast. Let me know what you think in the description down below. Who do you think are the best Canadian rock and roll bands? Do you agree with this list of the greatest Canadian rock and roll bands? Do you disagree? Leave your comments why. If you like this episode, please leave a like on YouTube. If you're listening to this on Spotify, please give it a follow. And you can follow me at my social medias on Instagram at BoyStick. Just type in BoyStick and I will pop up. Or you can follow me on Twitter at BoyStick Channel. You can type that in, it will pop up. There is an Instagram for the Honestly Lazy Show and Twitter, but I don't really use that. I'll just use my BoyStick one. If you want to be a part of the next little Followers choice, please follow me on BoyStick on Instagram. That's where you will be able to participate. Okay, holy shit, that was a good podcast. I'm not gonna lie. I felt the flow was good, and watch the audio be fucked, because that's just my luck. But I hope you guys had a good new year, and I hope 2020 is good to everybody. I hope it's good to me. And until the next episode, I'll see you guys later. All right, take it easy.